Yep.
Channel 85. Channel 85. Channel 85.
The Asian monsoons have been declining and drier since the 1970s, and scientists are trying to figure out what's going on. Welcome to Scientific Station. I'm Brendan Crawwell. The monsoons affect the Southeast Asian continent and the Indian subcontinent, as well as the equatorial Africa. The 6 months out of the year, they're famous for delivering large storms in one direction towards India and Southeast Asia, and then the other 6 months blow in the other direction and deliver rains to equatorial Africa. And these seasonal storms, the way many people know them, are very regular and very intense. There'll be rain for 6 months and then dry for 6 months. But there's actually quite a bit of variability in how they form and the cycles they progress year to year. Given the large area, the Indian Ocean and the land surrounding the Indian Ocean, it's a very difficult weather model to predict. Weather in general is difficult to predict, but given all the factors, the geologic factors and the currents, the ocean currents as well as the air currents, it's unusually difficult to predict. And since there isn't much data going back very far, actually recording how much rain fell and where it fell and for how long it fell, people have really just been working on assumptions about how the monsoons operate. So a recent study looked at tree rings all around the region that's affected by the monsoons to see how far back can we collect data that'll help explain the cycles in the monsoons to help us understand why the monsoons are drier now and have been for about the past 40 years than they've been historically. So what they did is it took about 500 sites all around this ring around the Indian Ocean that's affected by the monsoons and looked at the growth patterns in the tree rings. Each year, certain trees will make a dense ring during drier periods, drier or colder periods, and a bigger ring during the months of heavier growth and vigorous growth. And this annual pattern can be predictive and counted backwards to see how many years the tree's been alive, but also under what conditions were those trees alive. Then the patterns from each tree can be matched to each other. So you can have a tree that's 30 years old and then a tree that died 20 years ago but was 40 years old when it died. And the overlapping pattern of the tree rings can be matched up to give a period of time that reaches back further than the second tree was alive and later than the first tree was alive. Doing this, the scientists were able to create weather models from the tree ring patterns that go back 700 years. The Indian subcontinent and Asia have very detailed historical records also that describe the periods of intense rains and the periods of drought. And there have been several infamous droughts in the area that have influenced political and economic status and have been recorded in the history books. So this new model using the tree rings tried to correlate those periods we know of heavy rains and of drought and see if they're reflected in the tree ring data. And they are. So using that data, they were able to assume that the earlier periods where we don't have the written records, that the tree rings can give us a good indication of what the monsoons were doing. And what it showed is that there have been decades-long periods of increased rains as well as decade-long periods of mega droughts. What influenced these periods isn't always known. For a few of them, it's known that there was intense El Nino activity, which saps the rains out of the monsoon area. But using this model, scientists will have a better understanding of what's going on with the monsoons and what kind of measures need to be taken to forecast weather in this region. For more information, visit scientificstation.com.